School teaches you to be an employee, but who teaches you to be rich? Unlock the financial education that your parents and school system missed. In this video, we'll give you the full idea of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, easy to understand through a story. Let's go. Jake thought money was only for buying things. Then two very different men taught him that money can work for you if you learn how. Jake grew up in a small town in the USA. His school taught math and reading, but not money. At home, he heard two voices. One was his Uncle Tom, who said, "Get a good job, save your pay, and don't take risks." The other was his neighbor, Mr. Rivera, who said, "Learn how money works, then make it work for you." Jake was curious and confused. He wanted a bike, then a car, then freedom. Which voice was right? Jake decided to watch both paths closely. He took small experiments. He tracked his allowance, asked questions, and tried tiny projects. Over time, he saw patterns. Some things looked like savings, but actually cost him money. Some small efforts kept making money again and again. This story follows Jake as he learns simple rules about assets, liabilities, and thinking like an owner. There are questions and challenges along the way, so you practice too. Ready? Let's step into Jake's first lessons: clear, slow, and practical. Part 1. The Two Teachers. Jake was 12 when he met Mr. Rivera properly. Mr. Rivera owned a corner shop and fixed old radios. He smiled a lot and used a small notebook for ideas. Uncle Tom worked at the local factory. He wore neat shirts and talked about steady pay and pensions. Jake listened to both. One rainy afternoon, Jake asked Mr. Rivera, "How do you keep your shop open?" Mr. Rivera answered simply, "I buy things people want, and I buy things that bring money back." Jake nodded but did not understand, so Mr. Rivera gave an example. "Look at this," he said, holding two small cards he made. On the first card, he wrote toy truck. On the second, he wrote coin jar with nickels inside. If you buy a toy truck to sell later and people pay you more than you paid, that can be good. If you buy things that lose value or cost to keep, like a big video game you never use, that is different. But the best is when what you buy gives you money regularly, like renting a bike or selling lemonade every day. Jake thought, so some things give money back, some take money away. He practiced naming things: his skateboard, his comic books, and the old mower behind Mr. Rivera's shop. Pause. What is an asset? Answer. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. Write your own example below. Jake wrote his example. My comic book club charges members $1 to borrow a book. If I buy cheap comics and many people pay me, those comics are earning money. They are assets. Uncle Tom heard this and warned, "Not so fast. If you try risky ideas and fail, you lose money." Jake learned both caution and curiosity. He learned to ask, will this buy bring money to me or will it cost me money? That simple question started changing how he spent and saved. Part 2. Small experiments, big lessons. Jake wanted to try one small thing. He noticed many kids in his street liked hot chocolate after school. He asked Mr. Rivera if he could use a small corner outside the shop to sell cups. Mr. Rivera agreed for a low fee. Jake bought cheap cocoa and paper cups with the money he had saved. The first week, Jake learned a lot. He learned to count costs: cocoa, cups, sugar, and a small permit from his mom. He wrote everything in a notebook. He also tracked how many cups he sold each day and when sales were best. At the end, he saw profit, some money left after paying costs. Question: what gave Jake profit? Answer: selling hot chocolate for more than his costs. The hot chocolate became a tiny asset, a small business that made money again and again. Jake asked a deeper question. Should I turn my profit into a new toy or into something that helps me sell more hot chocolate? Mr. Rivera pointed out 3 choices. 1. Spend the profit on fun, short-term joy. 2. Save the profit in a jar, slow growth. 3. Reinvest the profit to buy more ingredients or a better thermos so he could sell more, grow the business. Jake chose to reinvest. He bought a better thermos and a sign. Sales grew. He realized reinvesting small profits made his little asset stronger. This taught him compound effect, small steps that build over time. Active recall check. Write one thing you could do this week to make a small asset. Example: sell lemonade, wash bikes, or design and sell stickers. Jake also learned about education. He read short books at Mr. Rivera's shop about simple business words. He learned to read numbers, not to fear them. Uncle Tom taught him discipline. Save a part of every earning. He combined both, learn and save, then invest wisely. A quick challenge. Every time you earn money this week, write these 3 numbers: how much you earned, how much you spent, how much you reinvested or saved. Keep it simple. By the end of part 2, Jake had a tiny, real example, a small, repeatable business that earned money, teaching him that money could be made by thinking, experimenting, and learning. He felt more confident and less scared. The first steps were small, but they moved him from listening to acting. Part 3. The School of Reality. At 15, Jake entered high school. He was smart in math, but bored in economics class. I talked about interest rates and GDP, but no one told him how to earn or manage real money. One day, during lunch, his friend Kevin showed him a new phone he bought with a credit card. "I'll pay later," Kevin said proudly. Jake didn't have a credit card, but he had something better: curiosity. That evening, he asked Mr. Rivera, "Why do people buy things they can't afford?" Mr. Rivera smiled. "Because schools teach us to work for money, not how money works." Jake thought deeply. Then what is the real school of money? Mr. Rivera replied, "The streets, business, real problems. If you pay attention, life itself becomes your classroom." So Jake decided to test that idea. He joined a small group that cleaned yards for neighbors. He noticed that most kids just did the job, got paid, and left. Jake did something extra. He made a flyer: weekly yard service, never worry again. He turned one-time jobs into repeat customers. When others worked for money, Jake learned to make systems that brought money to him again and again. Active recall. What's smarter? Working once for $10 or creating a system that gives you $10 every week without extra work? Jake's little group started earning steady money. He paid others to help and kept a part as his share. That's when he realized what Mr. Rivera meant. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. Uncle Tom saw Jake's notebook and said, "You're too young to run a business. Study first, money later." Jake respected him but smiled quietly. He knew both men were teaching him lessons, one about safety, the other about freedom. He promised himself to take the best from both. He also learned from mistakes. Once, he invested in used bikes to rent out, but they broke often, and repairs cost more than profit. Instead of quitting, Jake asked, "Why did I lose?" He found the answer. He didn't check the condition of his assets before buying.
Lesson learned. Always inspect before you invest. That failure taught Jake that losing small money was better than losing big later. Each mistake was a teacher. Mr. Rivera told him, "The rich buy education with mistakes. The poor buy comfort with excuses." That line stayed in his head. He wrote it on his wall. It became his new rule. Don't fear mistakes, fear not learning.
Part 4. Understanding the Cash Flow Game. About 480 words. When Jake turned 17, Mr. Rivera introduced him to something that would change his life, a board game called Cash Flow. Think of it like Monopoly, Mr. Rivera said, but it trains your brain to think like an investor. Jake invited his friends on Saturday nights to play. Each player had a small salary, expenses, and opportunities to invest in assets or liabilities. The goal was to escape the rat race, the endless loop of working to pay bills. At first, Jake kept buying liabilities, fancy cars, parties, gadgets, and his cash flow dropped. He lost the game, again and again. He complained, "It's unfair, I keep losing." Mr. Rivera smiled. "Then your brain is learning. Every loss in this game saves you a loss in real life." Next time, Jake tried something new. He started buying small properties in the game that gave monthly rent. He bought stocks that paid dividends. Slowly, his income grew higher than his expenses. One night, he finally escaped the rat race. That night, Mr. Rivera said softly, "Now you see what freedom feels like, when your money works harder than you do." Jake's eyes sparkled. He realized real wealth isn't about a big salary. It's about owning assets that pay you again and again. He looked at the board and whispered, "So if I earn $1,000 and spend $900, I have $100 left. But if I invest that $100 in an asset that brings $10 each month, I'm growing wealth." Mr. Rivera nodded. "Exactly. Money is a soldier. Don't let it sleep. Send it to work." Active recall. Write down one thing that could bring you money without you working daily, like a YouTube channel, rental, book, or product. Jake started thinking differently. He no longer wanted to just get a good job. He wanted to build a life where his time was free and his money created more value. Uncle Tom still said, "It's risky." But Jake replied gently, "It's only risky when you don't know what you're doing." By the end of that summer, Jake wasn't just learning about money. He was practicing financial freedom in small ways. He understood that wealth begins in the mind, not in the bank. That was the lesson of Part 4. Learn the game of cash flow before you play the game of life. Part 5. The fear of losing. When Jake turned 18, he decided to take his learning outside games and school. He wanted to really invest. Mr. Rivera told him, "Fear will be your biggest enemy. Not failure, not money, not luck. Fear." Jake didn't understand. "Fear of what?" he asked. "Fear of losing, fear of being wrong, fear of looking foolish," said Mr. Rivera. "That fear keeps most people poor." Jake remembered how his classmates laughed when he talked about running a small business. Most of them said, "Why take risks? Just get a job." He felt small. Maybe they were right. But a voice inside whispered, "Winners feel fear too. They just move anyway." So Jake decided to buy an old vending machine from a local store that was closing. It cost him $400, all his savings. He cleaned it, refilled it with snacks, and placed it in a busy laundromat. The first month, sales were slow. The machine jammed twice. He almost quit. He thought, Maybe Uncle Tom was right. Maybe I should have kept my money safe. But then Mr. Rivera said something that flipped his thinking. Every dollar you lose in learning is a dollar you earn in wisdom. The real loss is when you quit before the lesson. So Jake fixed the machine again and studied what snacks sold most. He replaced slow items with new ones, energy bars and small cookies. Slowly, profit began to appear. It wasn't much, but it was his. He realized that managing fear is more powerful than managing money. Pause and reflect. When was the last time you didn't try something because of fear? What could have happened if you tried anyway? After 3 months, the vending machine was earning steady cash. Jake saw the pattern again. Money works if you train it to. Mr. Rivera smiled. Now you understand the real secret. Success is built on small failures repeated until they turn into confidence. Jake wrote this in his journal. Each failure is tuition I pay to the school of success. Active recall challenge. If you lost $50 trying to start something, what would you learn from it instead of quitting? Write it down. Jake's confidence grew, but so did his curiosity. He wanted to know why people, even smart adults, never take these steps. Mr. Rivera answered, because fear makes people slaves to security. They want comfort more than freedom. That line hit Jake deeply. He realized fear was not something to destroy, but something to understand. It was a compass, pointing toward the areas where he needed to grow. Part 6. The Lesson of Taxes and Working for Yourself. A few months later, Jake noticed something strange. He earned money from his vending machine, but when he did a summer job at the local mall, his paycheck was smaller than expected. Why did they take money out of my pay? He asked his boss. Taxes, the boss said simply. Everyone pays them. Jake rushed to Mr. Rivera. Why do employees pay taxes first, but business owners seem to pay less? Mr. Rivera laughed softly. That's the design of the system. The rich use companies to control money legally. Employees work for money, but business owners and investors make money work for them through systems. Jake was confused, so Mr. Rivera drew a simple chart. Employee earns, pays taxes, spends what's left. Business owner or investor earns, spends on expenses, pays taxes last. That's why understanding money rules is powerful, Mr. Rivera said. The poor and middle class earn and spend. The rich learn the laws and let their business pay for what they need. Jake realized this wasn't about cheating. It was about being educated. Knowledge is leverage. He started his first tiny company, Jake Snacks. He registered it with help from Mr. Rivera and his parents. All the vending-related expenses, fuel, repairs, ingredients, became business costs. Jake learned how real entrepreneurs think. He was amazed that he could use his brain instead of just his hands to create value. Uncle Tom shook his head. That's too complicated. Just get a safe job. But Jake replied gently, Uncle, a job gives me comfort today. A business gives me freedom tomorrow. Pause and recall. Which one gives you more control? Working for money or making money work for you? Jake's business taught him about record keeping, receipts, and how to plan cash flow. He learned that financial literacy is not about math, it's about awareness. Mr. Rivera said, if you understand the language of money, you never need to fear it again. Jake wrote another note in his journal. The rich buy time. The poor sell time. That night, he dreamed of one day owning multiple small systems, like his vending machine, each earning a little money while he slept. It wasn't about greed anymore.
It was about freedom. Freedom to choose his time, his work, and his life. By the end of high school, Jake had learned more about money from real life than from any textbook. He had one vending machine, a steady income, and a growing mindset. He wasn't rich yet, but he was awake. Part 7. The Fall and the Wake-Up Call. After high school, Jake felt unstoppable. His vending machine business was doing well, and people started calling him the Money Kid. He began to believe he couldn't fail. That's when life decided to teach him humility. Jake saw a social media ad. Invest in smartphone accessories, easy profit. The seller promised high returns. Without asking Mr. Rivera or checking properly, Jake invested all his savings, $3,000, in bulk phone cases and chargers. Weeks passed. The boxes arrived late, and half the items were poor quality. Many didn't even work. Stores refused to buy them. Jake tried selling online, but got bad reviews. Within 2 months, he lost almost everything. He was broken, not just financially, but emotionally. His dream of becoming rich young crashed. When he finally visited Mr. Rivera, he expected anger or disappointment. But Mr. Rivera only said, "Good, you've met your best teacher, failure." He frowned. How can failure be good? Because now, Mr. Rivera said, you'll learn what greed hides. You'll learn due diligence. You'll stop chasing fast money and start building real value. Jake listened quietly. He realized he had acted from emotion, greed, and pride, not logic and patience. Mr. Rivera continued, "Every mistake you make tells you what not to do next time. The poor see loss as an end. The rich see loss as data." Jake spent the next month writing down what went wrong. He didn't research the supplier. He didn't test the product. He didn't think about demand. He invested emotionally, not logically. He began to see clearly. Wealth is not just money, it's mindset. Active recall question. When was the last time you made a quick decision and regretted it? What could you have done differently? Jake decided to rebuild slowly. He went back to his vending machines, applied new systems, tracked sales, and studied customer behavior. The small success returned. One day he told Mr. Rivera, "I think I understand now. Losing money was painful, but it made me sharper." Mr. Rivera smiled. "Exactly. People who fear failure never learn. You, Jake, are becoming financially intelligent." That day, Jake wrote his new rule. Never invest to impress, invest to understand. The fall was painful, but it woke him up. Part 8. The Power of Learning and Mentorship. After his failure, Jake realized he couldn't grow alone. He began to search for mentors, not rich people, but wise people. He remembered something Mr. Rivera once said. You don't need money to start. You need education that builds confidence. So Jake found mentors through books, podcasts, and community groups. He read about real estate, marketing, and small business strategies. He listened to stories of how people failed 10 times before succeeding once. He started spending 1 hour daily learning and 1 hour applying. At a local entrepreneur meetup, Jake met Mrs. Ellis, a real estate investor. She told him, most people think opportunity looks shiny. In truth, it often looks like hard work wearing a dirty coat. That sentence hit him hard. He started looking for opportunities others ignored. One day, he noticed an old building near his street with unused vending spaces. Instead of seeing junk, Jake saw potential. He contacted the owner and proposed a deal. He would clean and maintain the area if he could place 3 new vending machines there. The owner agreed. Within weeks, Jake's income doubled. He realized something powerful. Rich people look for value where others see problems. Active recall. Write one problem around you right now. How could it become an opportunity if you thought creatively? Jake shared his success with Mr. Rivera, who was proud but calm. Now, he said, teach others. That's how you'll grow stronger. So Jake began mentoring 2 younger kids from his neighborhood. He taught them about saving, assets, and fear. As he explained, he understood the lessons more deeply himself. Uncle Tom visited one evening and saw Jake teaching those kids under the streetlight. "You're doing good work, Jake," he said softly. "Maybe I was too afraid all my life." Jake smiled. "You gave me discipline, Uncle. Mr. Rivera gave me courage. I needed both." Mr. Rivera later added, "The rich don't stop learning. They learn, apply, teach, and repeat. That's the real cycle of wealth." Jake finally understood. Money grows when you grow. He made a promise to himself. Every month, I'll learn something new about money, not to earn more, but to become wiser. He was no longer chasing wealth. He was becoming worthy of it. That was the true power of learning and mentorship. It transformed not just Jake's wallet, but his mindset. Part 9. Money with Purpose. By the time Jake turned 25, his vending business had grown. He had 10 machines across town, each bringing in steady income. For the first time, he didn't have to worry about bills. He could travel, eat out, or take days off. His money worked for him now. But something felt missing. One quiet evening, while checking his accounts, Jake felt empty. "Is this it?" he whispered. "Is freedom just about having enough money?" The next morning, he visited Mr. Rivera, now older and slower, but still sharp. They sat on the porch with lemonade as Jake shared his thoughts. Mr. Rivera smiled gently. "Ah, Jake, you've learned how to make money work for you. Now it's time to learn why." Jake frowned. "Why? Isn't the goal to be rich?" Mr. Rivera shook his head. "Being rich isn't the same as being wealthy. The rich count their money. The wealthy count their impact." That struck deep. Mr. Rivera explained, "Money is a tool, like fire. It can cook your meal or burn your house. What matters is how you use it." Jake realized something important. He had been chasing numbers, not meaning. He began thinking differently. Instead of buying more machines, he started hiring local teens to manage them. He paid them fairly and taught them everything he'd learned about money, fear, and freedom. Soon, his business became a small ecosystem, teaching, earning, and growing together. Those kids were saving, investing, and thinking like owners. Jake felt something new, joy, not just pride. He told Mr. Rivera, "You were right. The real power of money is to create more power in others." Mr. Rivera nodded. "That's the secret most people miss. When money serves others, it multiplies naturally." Pause and reflect. What's one way you could use your skills or earnings to help others grow? Even something small can begin a ripple. Jake started a weekend class called Money Mindset for Teens. It wasn't about getting rich, it was about getting free. He shared lessons on assets, liabilities, fear, and the importance of learning. People began to notice. Local news even featured him as the boy who learned money by failing. He laughed when he saw that headline because it was true. He realized that all his failures, fears, and lessons weren't just for him, they were gifts to pass on. Mr. Rivera, sitting in his chair, smiled quietly. His student had become a teacher.
Conclusion. True freedom. Years later, Jake stood on a stage at a community event. In front of him were hundreds of young faces, some hopeful, some confused, some scared. He took a deep breath and began. When I was your age, I thought money was about buying things. But life taught me that money is about buying time. Time to learn, time to create, time to live the way you choose. He shared his story. 2 teachers, 2 paths. One said, work hard, save, and play safe. The other said, learn, risk, and let money work for you. He paused and asked, which one do you follow today? The crowd was silent. He smiled and continued, both are important. Discipline keeps you stable. Education sets you free. He told them how his first vending machine jammed, how he lost thousands chasing quick profits, and how he rebuilt everything by learning and teaching others. Then he shared the final lesson he learned from Mr. Rivera before he passed away. True freedom isn't when you stop working for money. It's when money helps you serve your purpose. That night, Jake looked at the stars and whispered, thank you, Mr. Rivera. He now owned multiple small businesses, but more importantly, he owned his mind. He could think clearly about choices, fear, and value. He had turned his financial freedom into emotional freedom, the ability to choose kindness over greed, patience over panic, purpose over pride. Active recall review. Before you finish Jake's story, close your eyes and recall these 10 truths. 1. An asset puts money in your pocket. 2. A liability takes money out. 3. Don't work for money. Make money work for you. 4. Fear is your greatest teacher if you face it. 5. Failure is tuition for success. 6. Reinvest small profits. Let them grow. 7. Learn the rules of money: taxes, cash flow, and leverage. 8. Find mentors and never stop learning. 9. Use money with purpose. Help others grow. 10. Freedom is not about having everything. It's about having choice. Jake ended his speech with a soft smile. He said, remember, the difference between my 2 teachers wasn't money. It was mindset. One taught me to live safely. The other taught me to live smartly. You don't need rich parents to think rich. You only need curiosity, courage, and the will to learn. The audience stood and clapped. But Jake didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a student, still learning, still growing. As he walked off the stage, a little boy ran up and asked, Jake, how can I be like you? Jake knelt down, smiled, and whispered, start small, learn fast, don't fear mistakes, and remember, you are your greatest asset. And that, right there, was the spirit of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Not about money, but about mindset.